And all right, guys, what's the story? Welcome along to 420 News. Your news host, Martin Condon. And 420 News is brought to you by Martin's World. All right, guys, hope everybody is well out there. Had a bit of a rush just about to make 420 News today. She's a tight one. And yeah, got here on time anyway, though. So, guys, on 420 News today, we're going to take a little trip around the world. We're going to go to France, Australia, and America, and then we'll finish off in Ireland again. So, guys, to start off in France, okay, on Wednesday, there in the French government, they got a bit of a telling off by some patient and doctor groups. They were supposed to start trials on medicinal cannabis in France today, starting this month, September, but they've postponed that now because of the whole coronavirus. You know, um, what a heartbreaker. There's patients now. I think there was over 3,000 patients who were lined up, ready, waiting, I suppose, to take part in this trial and to get access to medicinal cannabis. And now they have to wait even longer. They're being told possibly January next year, and the government over there, the opponents of the government, they're looking to get the government to sign a decree so that they can't kick it down the road any further, that they have to go ahead with it on January because essentially people, while they wait, they're suffering, and the government don't want that. Um, I think they said that there's, it says here, over 700,000 patients in France could become eligible for cannabis treatment, according to the report. So 700,000 people who could become eligible if the study was to prove fruitful. Sourcing the quantities needed abroad would be an aberration in economic and health terms, the report said also. So, again, this is something amazing for a report to come out and say. It's something I've been saying here as well for quite some time, that if Ireland or any country for that matter is to be looking abroad for cannabis medicines, it is going to be a nightmare in terms of having to import it, all of the what it's going to do to your GDP. You know, the amount of stuff you're importing into your country versus what you're exporting from your country. So they're looking now at growing their own. So they go on and say France therefore needed its own domestic cannabis production sector. It said, adding that many farmers were eager to grow the plant. This, however, would require a change in the law which currently bans production of plants with over 0.2% of THC, the psychoactive component of cannabis. So very much like ourselves here in Ireland, our farmers too they're but chomping at the bit. Essentially, they would love to be able to partake in this global industry, which is the cannabis industry, but they're being held back. So at least the French government have their heads out of their arse in some regards. Anyway, there's a report there calling for legislative changes to laws to enable farmers to be more efficient in their industry, i.e., growing cannabis. Currently in Ireland, it's very much the same. Our farmers can only grow one of 64 varieties. The 64 varieties have less than 0.2% THC, which is the technical term for industrial hemp, but 0.2% THC and only 64 varieties. So even if they were to keep that 0.2% THC but open it up to other varieties, that would be a step in the right direction. Even if they were to kick that 0.2% up to 1% like they do in Switzerland, and Switzerland is an amazing country, it's not falling apart by any means. They allow the sale and supply of up to 1% THC cannabis, which is amazing, you know, and it does wonders for their farmers over there. And I would say to many people, you know, if you are getting CBD flowers, Switzerland is a good place to source them from, because they can grow much better varieties than most of the other places in Europe. They joined the EU a little bit later than the rest of the countries, so Ireland had to sign up to this agreement where we were bound to some agricultural terms, but Switzerland didn't have to do that, and that allowed them to be able to grow that 1% THC cannabis. And now there's much better cannabis CBD flowers coming out of Switzerland as opposed to Ireland. And Ireland, you know, we should be leading the way. We're a great country with growing stuff. Like the Isle of the Green, like, you know, you can't fly over the country without noticing how green it is. And there's a massive missed opportunity there that we're not just going full hog at this, you know. Like there was talks there about maybe 2 or 3 years ago about Board Namona. They were exploring maybe growing cannabis in the bogs or something like that, but nothing came of it. Nothing came of it. You know, 2 3 years down the line, and here we are. and there's nothing coming from Board Namona. I sent off my CV and everything to him, gave him a nice job application, and kind of said, no, this is only because you were talking about growing cannabis. And I was like, I'd love to come forward and help you, maybe be the expert within Board Namona, because these guys are all into their peat and stuff, so they probably don't have a clue about cannabis. But I never heard back from those guys, didn't even get a response to the email from the HR department there. And yeah, I wasn't surprised either, to be fair. But guys, just to shoot back to France, okay, their interior minister, okay, he was questioned on this around changing the legislation, and this is what he had to say. As interior minister and politician, I cannot tell parents who are fighting for their children to give up their drug addiction that we are going to legalize this shit. He said, bollocks, like, seriously, if there's children out there and they're struggling to give up their drug addiction, legalization would be very beneficial, because you would put an age limit on it and it'd be hard for kids to get it. It's a no-brainer, really. Like, to keep it illegal keeps it in the control of the drug dealers, who will use kids to sell it. Not only sell it to kids, but use the kids to sell it. And here we have your man with his shit, which is a funny one, actually. When I was in France, I spent a bit of time there. You used to have to go down to I don't know where where they were from, actually. They were kind of Arab guys, and they were selling hash. And you go down and you're asking for the shit, and yeah, they know what you were on about then, like the shit. It was a French thing. So I don't know, is that a bit of a tongue-in-cheek thing here from the interior minister, like saying this shit? Like, I don't know what he's saying there, like, but it's kind of it's just a bad view from him, really. Like, as interior minister, he should have a better understanding of this. Essentially, he's allowing policies to remain in place that are giving the cannabis to kids. That he's saying that children want to give it up. They're struggling with their addiction, but they're addicted under prohibition. I don't know. Brain boggles sometimes, really does. Guys, the shoot on over, okay? We're going to hop on a plane, even though we're not allowed. We're going to go to Australia. So in Australia, they had a study that went on there recently, where basically they had enlisted, I think it was 80 patients that took part in the study. And what they done is they carried out a placebo trial, where the patients, over the course of a couple of months, they went through three phases. So at one stage they would get a placebo, and another stage they would get the actual drug, or possibly twice. I'm not too sure how they actually done it, but there was 3 phases to this. And essentially, the patients, one of the phases, were given a placebo, and another they were given the cannabis. And what they found out afterwards was that 4 out of 5 of the patients actually preferred medical cannabis, as opposed to some of the other more conventional anti-nausea drugs. So this was in line with their chemotherapy. So the cannabis wasn't being used to treat their cancer or cure their cancer or anything like that. It was being used for just to alleviate the symptoms of the chemotherapy. And 4 out of 5 patients thought it was amazing. What they found, early results coming from the study show that there was over 10% increase in effectiveness of people who are their nausea controlled. So they went from 14% to 25% having their nausea effectively controlled. That's considered a nice jump up there in those numbers, considering that I think it's 1 in 3 people who undergo chemotherapy are not able to treat their nausea currently using the current medication that's available, the current anti-nausea medication. So any medication that's to come along and maybe bump that number up a bit, so there's more people who are undergoing chemotherapy that aren't experiencing the nasty side effects of it. That's a positive thing in my eyes, and well done to the researchers over there in Australia who carried out the study, and I've got that information out there now to the people. I hope that Ireland can follow suit. Maybe there's oncologists out there. Maybe there's the Cancer Research Institute guys. All these guys who are constantly collecting money for cancer and cancer research. Maybe they want to use a bit of that money for this. I know Kenny Tynan is above there, and he does his Cannabis Patient podcast, just so he can get enough money to get he's medical cannabis, because the cost of it is tremendous. It's €4,000 he has to pay every 3 months for his medicine, which is scandalous, really, and it's not covered by our government. And we could be using people like Kenny, not using, but yeah, we could be getting people like Kenny into studies where we give them their cannabis at maybe for free or at an incredibly knockdown rate, and we gather the data then off the back of the patients, which then will reinforce whether cannabis is effective or not, or how best to use cannabis, or what strain of cannabis is best. We could be investing into these studies, but I don't know what these cancer fundraiser guys are doing with that money, but it doesn't seem like they're doing a lot of research in cannabis anyway, at least not in Ireland, from what I can see. I'm just going to quickly jump on over there to a video for you guys. This is a video attached to that news piece there that came out of Australia. So if you just give me a second there, and I'm going to hit play for you. There we go.
Harry Freeman is one of the 80 patients to receive these cannabis capsules at Chris O'Brien Lifehouse.
Anything that they offer that can make you feel better.
The 32-year-old was treated for testicular cancer, the second most common cancer among young men.
It was pretty upsetting because I was getting married in the February.
Having potent intravenous chemotherapy wasn't pleasant.
I was pretty spaced out and not well.
There is still 1 in 3 people who have vomiting and half of people who still have significant nausea, despite our best anti-nausea medications.
Lifehouse has been testing the use of cannabis in a scientific study to assess its true effectiveness in providing relief.
Now, this was a placebo-controlled trial, so nobody knew who was getting what until the end.
Early results reveal they make a difference.
An extra 1 in 10 people had control of nausea and vomiting, so it improved from 14% to 25%.
Harry could tell he was taking the trial capsules during his last round of chemo.
That was definitely the best cycle out of the 3.
The capsules did cause some patients to become drowsy, dizzy or disorientated. However,
more than 4 in 5 people said they preferred having cannabis despite some side effects.
the trial is continuing. Up to 250 patients at cancer centres across New South Wales are being recruited. Harry got married a week after his treatment and is now expecting a child.
Very lucky.
Gabriella Rogers, 9 News.
So there you go, guys. That was just a little video there from that news, attached to that news article on the study that came out of Australia. But, you know, it's just crazy that we're not carrying out these kind of studies here in Ireland, especially with the number of cancer patients that we have here in Ireland.
Ian Henderson was celebrating his son's birthday when he suffered a seizure without warning.
There we go. Sorry, it just had a bit of noise kicking over my microphone or my headphones. But yeah, so like that's very positive news coming out of Australia, and I just hope that it's sooner rather than later cancer patients here in Ireland and other patients that can benefit from cannabis, medical cannabis, will start getting access to it, and research will be carried out then to also reinforce the using of cannabis as a medicine, because the fact that there's not enough research going on right now, that's primarily the main reason why cannabis isn't available for people, you know. So guys, we're going to shoot over to America. Fuck yeah. So in America, we had so in America, basically there's an election coming up there in November. So in November we have Donald Trump going up against I think it's Joe Biden in an election, but Joe Biden is actually teaming with Kamala Harris or Pamela Harris. I'm not too sure what the woman's name is, but recently there she actually said that she was going to decriminalise cannabis, across the board federally, which is a very good thing. And they also said that they were going to start expunging people who are being charged for cannabis possession or crimes around cannabis. So that's a good thing there. Not promoting Biden as a candidate or anything, but I don't get the vote in that election, obviously enough being in Ireland. But I'm definitely not a supporter of Trump either. I don't like either of those guys. I know back when the election was running back in 2016, I was very interested in the third candidate. I think his name was Johnson or something like that. I can't remember what the guy's name was. But nobody liked him because of one thing. He didn't know where some country was anyway involved in the war. It was Aleppo, I think that was the country. He didn't know where that is, and that lost him serious credit. Like, you know, it's not even in America. Like, the guy who's going to be the president of America, surely it doesn't matter if he doesn't know that. But I'm just going to again quickly just jump over to a video there, just of that announcement. So just bear with me 1 second now as I just switch on over to that. There we go. Bit of an issue, but here we go. So this is Kamala Harris. Yeah, what was I saying? Pamela? Close enough. So here we go. This is Senator Kamala Harris.
Under a Biden-Harris administration, we will decriminalize the use of marijuana and automatically expunge all marijuana use convictions and end incarceration for drug use alone. So this is no time, from I think our collective perspective, this is no time for half-stepping. This is no time for incrementalism. We need to deal with the system, and there needs to be significant change in the design of the system.
So you heard it there, okay? That's Kamala Harris, and she's calling for the decriminalisation of, or she's not calling for, she's saying that she will decriminalise cannabis if herself and Biden are to be elected. Do I trust them? No, not really. But in fairness, right, she's saying there's no time for half-stepping. But that's exactly what decriminalisation is. That's exactly what she is doing. If she's only half-step on this, like decriminalisation without legalisation and regulation, that's a half-step in my eyes. Like, so I don't know what she's talking about there when she said, "Oh, it's not time for half-stepping." Like, that's exactly what you're doing, lady. You know, I commend you, I applaud you, whatever. Decriminalisation of cannabis, it's great, you know, and expunging people's criminal records too for cannabis. That's amazing, you know, very well done. But to not go full hog on this and just regulate it right across the board, legalise and regulate, like decriminalisation is only a half step in my eyes. I suppose, right, that's depending on what form of decriminalisation she's talking about. So what I'm thinking of when I'm thinking of decriminalisation is the drug user is decriminalised, but the drug seller is still a criminal. So you could have cannabis, let's say, for your own personal possession, but if you were to be selling cannabis, say, to your friends or something like that, that's still a crime and you'll still be punished for it. That, in my eyes, is what I understand by decriminalisation. If you're talking about decriminalisation without any regulation or changes to policies outside of just decriminalising, like then I that's the way I see it, you know, decriminalisation of just the drug user. We need legalisation and regulation, because even if you decriminalise the drug user, they still have to get their drugs from somewhere, you know. So that's a major half step in my eyes. So I don't know, maybe she's kind of thinking of different things, but I know Biden is anti cannabis regulation or cannabis legalization, so he's not for it, but he supports decriminalisation. Do you know, half stepping. All right, so guys, and come back then. All right, we're going to jump back to Ireland, and we'll start off with a light-hearted one. Ireland's dumbest criminal. It's not me. There was some guy caught driving his car with no lights on. Like, all right, if you're going to be driving your car like under the influence of cannabis, all right, fair enough, he mightn't have been under the influence of cannabis. He might have just had it in his system and he tested positive, but he was driving with his lights off. Like, come on, lad, seriously, like, you were asking for it, and then they tested you for cannabis or for drugs, and they found you with cannabis in your system. My heart bleeds, yeah, on you know, but at the same time, like, I can't help, you no lights on, feck's sake. Unfortunate. But you know, I hope maybe the blood test comes back and shows that you're under that limit, and that you don't have to deal with the court and everything. It's 1 nanogram per milliliter. you know, is the limit of THC in your blood, and I think it's 10 nanograms of THOOC, which is like a metabolite of THC. It's what it's broken down to in your body. I think that's 10 milligrams or nanograms per milliliter of blood as well. So just to put you in a note, but yeah, that's unfortunate, lads. If you're going to drive, make sure your lights are on at night time. In fact, guys, drive with your lights on 24/7. Saves lives. Then, guys, in other news in Ireland, you might have seen this one. I think it was last night. There was a taxi driver and 2 others arrested in basically an organised raid by our Gardaí, and they stopped 3 vehicles in Dublin. One of them was a taxi driver, and what they found then was €610,000 worth of drugs. I think it was 350,000 worth of cocaine and 260,000 worth of cannabis. Now, an interesting thing about this story is the story that came with it was Mr. Big Mob. Like that's crazy. Like, so there's a guy out there operating a gang or something under the alias of Mr. Big, or maybe that's what the guards are calling him, or is it what he's calling himself? I don't know. But the news article they have up about him there is it's rather crazy, like, to be honest. Like, so this guy is being watched by the cops above there. You know, they're very well aware of who this guy is, who's involved in this. But what the article says is 3 men aged 49, 46 and 42 considered to be in inverted commas, like in the quotation marks, nobodies in terms of organised crime, remained in custody in different Northside stations last night, where they're being detained in relation to the seizure. So they know these guys are nobodies. Like, they're not the guy they're looking for. Like, it's not often that the guards will actually come out and say this, like. So that's very interesting. They're watching somebody up there, watching what he's doing, and they caught 3 other people now who are considered nobodies, or just connected to this guy. Maybe they're mules just moving stuff around for him. I don't know what it is there, why they were doing the thing for him, but that's a lot of drugs. And then they were going to say that senior sources said that the big bus will be a big loss to the Coolock-based crime lord known as Mr. Big. So this dude is based up in Coolock, but they say it's a big loss to him. But 350,000, 260,000 euro, like that's street value according to our Gardaí. So like 260,000 in grams, like €20 a gram is what our Gardaí value it at. So that's just 13 kilos of cannabis. 13 kilos, not a whole lot. Like, it's enough. Like, you know, I wouldn't mind having 13 kilos of cannabis right now. But it's still not a lot, like, in terms of, in contrast to things like, you seen there a couple of months ago, there was millions being seized up in Northern Ireland, like, and I'd imagine they're regularly coming in shipments like that. So, like, the cops say 260,000 here for his cannabis. I reckon he paid, geez, if the guy paid 50,000, it was probably a lot for 13 kilos. 13 kilos, like that's quite a bulk. Like, I know before, I bought a kilo of cannabis and it cost me €8,000. And that was when I bought one, and I got it on tick too. So I could have got it cheaper if I pay cash. I don't know, does this guy get his stuff on tick? I'd imagine he's paying cash most likely. So, like, surely he's getting 13 kilos for less than maybe €5,000 a kilo. Do you know, give him, what's that, €65,000, so he might have paid for it, and then you have his cocaine there as well. But, like, how much money is this guy sitting on anyway? How much has he made? Like, Mr. Big, don't get a name like that, like, quite easily, unless you got big stacks. But then later on into the article, like, it talks about, like, how much this guy is actually being watched, and that he's driving around in bangers in order to not draw attention to himself. And there was just one line in it that really annoyed me. In this, basically it says, sources say Mr. Big's mob have dozens of crack cocaine dealing teenagers in their enterprises in Darndale and other suburbs. So, like, dozens of crack cocaine dealing teenagers, like that's ridiculous. Like, that's really pissing me off. Like, that, still today, that this is what prohibition is doing on our streets. You have guys coming up now, Mr. Big now, like, you know, like that's just ridiculous. Like before it was the Kinahans, the Hutches, now we've Mr. Big, you know. Like what's this actually going to turn into? Like the longer we continue prohibition, the worse this is going to get. It really is. Like you look at how things escalated over the last say 30 years, you know, going back to the time when Veronica Guerin was shot, and all of the rise of the drug gangs that came, you know, the guards weren't able to do this. The guards fight for more and more budget every year in order to tackle these guys, but meanwhile every year these guys just get bigger and bigger, and the Gardaí aren't able to catch up with them. Like for every time the Gardaí double their force, like these guys are quadrupling it or more, you know, in terms of their budget and everything and what they're able to do. Like they get rid of one drug dealer, and there's going to be many, many more who are going to just quite happily jump in and take his place, and that's what the guards are up against. It's ridiculous. Like teenagers selling crack cocaine. If we go back to what your man in France was saying, like, he can't legalize and regulate cannabis because there's people out there struggling with addiction. Like, no, man, your excuse is bullshit. It really is. Like, much like in keeping prohibition in place is bullshit. Like, if we really want to tackle the likes of Mr. Big, really, if we want to take down Mr. Big and we're serious about it, just legalize and regulate the trade in which he operates in. Then Mr. Big has to operate under the rules set in place by the regulators, you know. So let's say for cannabis, he would have to go and maybe acquire a license for selling it. Now Mr. Big's name is known. Now Mr. Big has to follow rules and regulations or he'll lose his license. You know, like otherwise we keep prohibition in place, and sure Mr. Big is just going to keep hiring teenagers to do his bidding, you know, and the cops are going to keep catching nobodies. And Mr. Big is just going to laugh at him the whole time because Mr. Big is Mr. Smart. He knows not to touch drugs. He knows not to implicate himself in that. He knows that if he can buy in cocaine, say, for 100,000 and sell it for $1 million, like, happy, yeah, sure, another 100,000 there to pay off the teenagers. Like, yeah, the boys will be delighted in their, what's that jacket there that was in the thing, fucking, the Canadian Goose jacket, is it? €1,000 jacket there inside the kid. The boys, the cops and everything were jealous of the young fella's clothes. Like, seriously, like, the cops are jealous. Like, that'll just tell you how influential these drug dealers can be to teenagers when even the cops themselves are jealous. Like, to quote the cop, it was a woman cop, I think she said it, or was it a guy? I'm pretty sure it was a chick. And she turned around and said, like, oh, I couldn't afford this on my wage. Not my weekly salary anyway. She's like, I'd have to save up for a few weeks, you know, because it's £1,000 for the jacket. Like, crazy. Like, and I think it was a 17-year-old young fella that they took it off, along with like a couple of other of them. Like, he must have had about maybe 10 of those jackets that are between 800 and €1,200 each. He had Rolex watches. He was pimping hard, like. But all his money was made under prohibition, and he was recruited into the trade because of prohibition, you know. I don't know any 17-year-olds that are working in an off license, because I don't think they're allowed working an off license. I'm pretty sure the law says you have to be over 18 to work in an off license. Currently, drug dealers can hire kids of any age, guys. So seriously, like, have a good think about what you're supporting by supporting the continuation of prohibition in our society, when our Gardaí have the likes of Mr. Big, who they're watching. They're watching him, like, they're watching him driving around in shitty bangers and everything. They're saying it, like, and they still can't catch him. Seriously, guys, come on. Legalise and regulate. It's the only way. Like, harm reduction. The longer this goes on, like, the more harm that's going to cause. You know, so that's all I have for you today, guys, in 420 News. I hope you've enjoyed this installment, and I hope you're all doing well and looking after yourselves out there. I'll take a quick swing on over to the Facebook page, and I'll just see what the crack is, see how everybody's doing out there. So for Grace, what's the story, Ferg? Hope you well, bud. We will be last to improve our farmer situation. Yeah, if I have anything to do with it, Ferg, I'll make sure that we're not, if I have anything to do with it. And any other farmers out there, you know, guys, you should be stepping up in this as well. Like, you're being robbed blind. Miriam, thanks for the message there, Miriam. Great stuff, nice one. Root Martin, I use it for retractable pain, migraines and nausea. You don't have to smoke it either. You can make it in candy or mix it in drinks or topical. Yeah, that's spot on, Root. Yeah, and even an interesting one is the suppository route. Apparently, the suppository route is an effective means of getting the cannabis into the system really quick. But it also has apparently, now I stand to be corrected on this, but it possibly reduces the high. You don't get as high. I'm not too sure now. I could be wrong on that. But if it's anything like edible cannabis, then when you eat cannabis, like you're basically putting it through the liver, and it gets broken down in the liver, where it produces. Geez, I can't remember the name of the compound. Is it 11 delta hydroxy? And it's like twice as strong as, or as psychoactive as THC is alone. So when you eat cannabis, you're actually going to have a more intense high as if you were to smoke the same amount. But I think if you were to do it a suppository route, then you bypass that first pass to the liver, you get it directly into the bloodstream, and you don't get as high either because of whatever way it works. But again, I stand to be corrected on that. But thanks there for your comment, Ruth. And we have Jamie, nice one, Jamie, there for tagging your buddy. And nice one again, Ruth. And Teresa, hey Martin, as far as I know, that you can get cannabis here in Ireland if you have cancer. Yeah, you're dead right there, Teresa. If you have cancer and you're receiving chemotherapy, you can get cannabis, but you have to first take all of the other drugs that they want to give you. So you can only take cannabis in Ireland for not for your cancer, but it's for the side effects of chemotherapy. So that's the only reason you're able to get cannabis for cancer in Ireland, is if you're undergoing chemotherapy and the chemo is causing you severe nausea, and then only then actually, after you've taken the other drugs that they have, the other anti-nausea drugs, will they even consider you for cannabis. So you have to guinea pig on their other drugs before you're allowed to get access to this natural plant medicine that it's quite non-toxic. And Ruth, we don't want Biden. Biden has voted against marijuana for the last 47 years. Kamala's just saying what we folks want to hear. Sorry, at least Trump is leaving it up to each state to decide. It still is illegal on federal level here. Yeah, Ruth, as I say, I don't support either of those guys, and I don't trust Biden and Kamala either, because they're politicians. They're known for lying, and I 100% agree with you. They know that this is an issue that's going to get them a lot of support, so they're just going to talk and talk, but there's going to be no actions. So if people were to foolishly believe them, then they're going to be probably upset afterwards when, maybe it's at the end of their term, after they serve, 4 or 5 years they do in America, that they turn around, oh yeah, and this decriminalization thing, we'll do it next term, vote us again, I just don't believe them, really. Don't believe any of them. It's independent all the way for me. Like, I know you have a weird system in America with your two-tier system. And we have a two-tier system here in Ireland, but independents actually have a chance of getting elected and having some say in government, whereas in America it is a little bit different there. And Dave, nice one for joining, Dave. And it will be up in YouTube there in a little bit as well. And what's going on, Debbie? Shout out there, cha. Nice one for the comment. And nice one, Teresa, again, for taking part. So guys, that's it all there now for today. That's the end of 420 News. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you're all going to have a fabulous weekend. I'll be lining up some interviews there myself over the weekend and next week as well, so I'll have some more content there to release for yourselves to enjoy. And guys, if you've any questions, if you've anything you want me to cover, if there's anything out there that I'm missing, get in touch, make it known. The show's for you as well as for me. So guys, peace and love. Keep it real. Martin's World. Martin Condon signing off.